My son laughed when I wore the fake Rolex he gifted me, so I left him a $7 million inheritance in my will, only for him to learn in court it was fake. All he got was a letter of shame and the same fake Rolex. The box was velvet-lined, black with gold trim, the kind that felt deliberately expensive even before you opened it. My son handed it to me with both hands, beaming like he had just given me a piece of his soul. "Something special for you, Dad," he said, voice dipped in that polite charm he'd been wearing more and more lately. The latch clicked open, and there it was, sleek, silver-toned, the face immaculate, the crown etched perfectly. I didn't even ask where it came from. I wanted to believe in the moment, to believe he saw me worthy of something fine. Years of sacrifice, guidance, and unconditional love poured into him, and in that small gesture, I saw what I thought was gratitude. I slipped it on. It fit perfectly. He smiled and clapped my shoulder, told me it looked good on me. And I wore it. Daily. As if it meant something. Maybe I needed it to. It wasn't about the brand. I never cared much for that kind of showmanship. But he gave it to me, and I took it as a gesture of respect. A man who had raised a boy into adulthood, who had put away vacations and weekends for the sake of tuition and second chances. Wearing it felt like recognition, like, for once, I wasn't just a name on his birth certificate, but someone he saw. Someone he appreciated. I didn't question the sudden generosity. He had a good job. Made more in his first 5 years than I did in 2 decades. Maybe it was his way of saying thank you. The truth came quietly, without drama, without a scene. I was at a gathering he had invited me to, a small party at his new apartment. Music was low, lights dimmed, and laughter flowed like water through conversation. I kept to the side mostly, nursing a soda, watching the people he surrounded himself with. They were all polished, confident, voices filled with self-assured charm. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I heard him, clear as glass. "It's hilarious. The old man wears it every day. You'd think I handed him gold from the heavens. Thing cost me $40 online. Looks real though, doesn't it?" Laughter followed. Not the kind you mistake for misunderstanding. It was deep, mocking, cruel in that subtle way only the proud know how to deliver. I stood still, jaw tight, heartbeat strangely calm. I didn't interrupt. I didn't say a word. My hands stayed in my pockets. I didn't even look at him when I left later that evening. I shook his hand like everything was fine, like I hadn't just watched the last thread of father-son trust fray in silence. At home, I sat in my office. The Rolex lay on the desk, still ticking, still convincing, still worthless. I stared at it for a long time, not angry, just hollow. I wasn't grieving the money. I had lived a full life, had enough in the bank to be comfortable. The issue wasn't the cost of the watch, but the cost of the intention behind it. He gave it to humiliate me privately and laugh about it publicly. That wasn't immaturity. That was calculation. That was arrogance. The next morning, I called my lawyer. It wasn't a dramatic conversation. Just a matter-of-fact update to my will. I want everything reassigned, I said. No loopholes, no vague lines. Remove him as the beneficiary. Completely. My lawyer, an old friend named Howard, listened quietly. He'd known my son since he was in middle school. I heard the pause on the line, but he didn't argue. He took the instructions, confirmed the details, and I told him exactly what to do with the inheritance. $7 million. That's what I had amassed by the end of my working life. Not through wild investments or lucky breaks, but careful, deliberate work. A manufacturing business I built from nothing. Sacrifices, sleepless nights, everything it takes to make something real. I didn't owe him the money. I had given him the tools to make his own. But I had planned, once, to leave it to him anyway. Until I realized he valued appearances more than effort, ego more than respect. The will was rewritten. A new clause inserted, detailed, airtight, cruel in its accuracy. And to seal it, I had my assistant help me find the exact same model of fake Rolex. Identical. Right down to the faulty weight distribution and too shiny face. I had it packaged in the same box he gave me. I even added a ribbon, a mirror of his mockery. And then came the letter, handwritten, deliberate, brief. Howard had it placed with the watch, inside a locked compartment labeled clearly in the final documentation. I never confronted my son, never told him I knew. I wore the watch until the end. Let him believe I was still the fool, that I never noticed. And when I passed, it was sudden. No warnings, no goodbyes. Just a quiet exit from the world, as I had lived, steady and unspectacular. But he came to the will reading smiling. He shook Howard's hand like he was greeting a business partner, wore a tailored suit, sat back in the leather chair like the room already belonged to him. There were no other heirs, no cousins or charities, just one envelope. Howard read the words clearly, evenly, no emotion in his tone. To my son, who gifted me a fake Rolex to mock me, here is a matching inheritance. The box was opened. Inside, the same fake watch. And then the letter. Real value is earned. You gave me nothing real, so now you get the same. He didn't move, didn't speak. The room was utterly still, as if sound itself had taken a step back to let shame do its work. He tried to keep his face steady, tried to laugh it off. But even that failed. Not a single person in the room shared in his performance. The silence was final, heavy, unforgiving. He didn't speak to anyone after the reading. Not the lawyer, not the clerk, not even the distant relatives who had come just for formality. He just sat there, frozen, holding the box as though its weight had shifted. The courtroom emptied slowly, one polite nod at a time. Chairs creaked, footsteps echoed, and still he sat, watching the counterfeit tick across its glass face, not even pretending to smile anymore. The silence didn't comfort him, it exposed him. He left the courthouse without a word. No phone call, no questions, no complaints. Just walked to his car and drove off. But not to mourn, not to reflect. His pride wasn't bruised, it was dismantled. Years of assuming entitlement, shattered in the span of minutes. It wasn't about the money, not fully. It was about being outplayed by the man he had mocked. He tried to challenge the will. 2 weeks later, Howard called to inform me, posthumously, that my son had filed to contest it. It didn't matter that the terms were legally airtight. He wanted it overturned. Claimed mental manipulation, emotional duress, false representation. But Howard had been prepared. Every conversation, every adjustment to the documents, every notarized revision, it was all documented, dated, witnessed, verified. There wasn't a single gap in the paperwork. Still, my son pressed. He hired attorneys, burned through savings, even borrowed against his condo. He was convinced there had to be a mistake, that somewhere in the lines a crack had been missed. But each claim dissolved under scrutiny. The court reviewed everything and found nothing suspect. I had been of sound mind. I had made deliberate decisions. I had left instructions with clarity. The judgment came back final. The will stood. He lost more than the case. He lost time, money, and face. People around him started keeping their distance. His name no longer carried quiet prestige. His colleagues knew. Not because I told them, but because gossip travels faster when pride is wounded. Some whispered that he deserved it. Others said nothing, but their silence was worse. The box with the fake watch remained unopened on his desk. He couldn't throw it away, and he couldn't bear to look at it. Months passed. The house I lived in was sold, just as I had arranged. The proceeds went to foundations I had chosen carefully, ones he never cared about. My car, my personal items, even my collection of old books, all itemized and given to people who had actually meant something in my life. A former apprentice received my tools. My caretaker was gifted the lake cabin. My accountant of 15 years received a final bonus I had signed months earlier. Everything was deliberate. No random names. No wasted gestures. I had not only stripped my son from the will, I had replaced him with people who had earned it. He made one last attempt. A private letter to Howard, requesting a sealed envelope to be opened if I had left a secondary message. He couldn't have really meant to leave me with nothing, it read. Howard forwarded the message to the estate manager, who simply replied, "He left no second letter, only the one you already received." There was no appeal, nothing left to interpret. Eventually, he returned to the box, opened it again. The watch was still pristine. He finally took it out and wore it, staring at himself in the mirror, the irony dripping from every tick. In that reflection, he saw the full circle, how he had tried to mock, and ended up being the one mocked in turn. He knew now that he hadn't fooled me, that I had allowed him to believe it for years, just to craft a perfect end. He hadn't been clever. He had been obvious. He sold the condo to cover legal fees, moved to a smaller place, quieter, away from the city. He tried reconnecting with old friends, but their answers were cold. Doors once open were now shut. He called Howard again, asking not for inheritance, but for understanding. Howard gave him the truth. Your father gave you what you gave him, nothing real. That was the point. And he meant it. With time, the anger wore off. So did the embarrassment. But what remained was the void. $7 million wasn't just a number, it was a statement. A life's work passed over. He understood it now. That wealth, legacy, and trust weren't things passed down by default. They were built, earned, maintained. And the moment he laughed at the man who raised him, he forfeited that right. He returned to work eventually, quietly. No more lavish lifestyle. No more reckless purchases. He carried the fake watch in his pocket, not on his wrist. Like a weight. Not to be admired, but to remind him. Every tick was a lesson. Years later, he gave a talk at a local community center. Not about inheritance or money. About respect. He didn't mention me by name. Just said, sometimes the lesson doesn't come in words. It comes in silence. And when it does, listen closely. The audience clapped. Not wildly, but politely. He didn't linger after. Just left quietly. The watch stayed with him till the end. Still ticking. Still worthless. But now it was the most valuable thing he owned, not because of its worth, but because of what it cost him to understand it.